Your website need a voice, or maybe you need to put a little pizzazz in your podcast? I'm Dave Holly from Dipsy Doodle Productions. I've been doing radio and television voiceover work more than 35 years. Put my experience to use for your audio needs. Broadcast, website, podcast, voicemail, and hold messages. Copywriting also available. For more information, go online, dazzleshows.com/Dipsy, D-I-P-S-Y. The name might be a little dipsy, but the quality's big and the rates are reasonable. You're listening to the Tactical Pain Podcast with Jeni Mc. Real people, real pain, discussing real strategies for living a better life.
Welcome back, listeners, to Tactical Pain Podcast. I am your host, Jeni Mc, and we are here today to talk about real pain and real strategies for a better life. Today, I'm going to be talking with my guest, Tessa, about living life with endometriosis. So, Tessa, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
We're talking about endo because although this is going to be aired at a later time, we are recording it in March, which is Endometriosis Awareness Month. But you have a long history of being aware of endo for every month, not just 1 month.
Right.
What can you tell us about, give us a little background on what endo is, if you would, please.
So endometriosis is, to not to dumb it down, but to make it easier to understand, to where the lining of your uterus escapes your uterus and causes scar tissues and adhesions in other parts of your body. Usually it's on the uterus, on the ovaries, in the cul-de-sac. It can attach itself to your bowels, your abdominal wall, your bladder. The list, of course, goes on because it can migrate. But it is affected by the hormones in your body. Usually for, I'm not going to say the average woman, but it's usually more intense the week of your period.
Mm-hmm.
It also, for me, got to the point where I was down to like 2-3 good days in a month, and the pain was every other day, all the other days in the month. But
oh, wow.
Basically, when the hormones or estrogen is at the right level, it can cause your adhesions to bleed. It causes them to flame up, to cause more pain, obviously, in wherever it's attached to. And then as well as normal cramping from your uterus shedding the lining. That's kind of a breakdown of it to make it easier to understand.
And is this something that from your very first period you were experiencing, or is it something that increased over time?
Well, usually with your first period, it's not going to be an issue because your body didn't have any lining to shed to other places or to escape. So usually your first couple of periods are okay. It does progress with time. So I didn't really notice anything until I was about 19. All before that, it was controlled with, Midol, ibuprofen, nothing major. My mom was one of those women who, oh, are you dying? No? Okay, good. Go take something for it. And she used more colorful language than that. So it was just take something for it, deal with it. It was never something that we looked deeper into until I was 19.
And that's something that we've talked about, the idea that women are pre-programmed to believe this is our curse and periods suck, and it will be and it should be bad. That's
Right.
one of the things that is really kind of awful, is we're programmed to believe it should be bad.
Right, exactly. Because before our parents, considering the fact I'm 40, my mom would have been, 60, whatever this year. So her mom always told her that, yeah, that periods are bad. They suck. They're painful. Deal with it. So
And
they taught us the same.
And we've also always been told to hide it.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, we're not supposed to talk about that. Ladies don't talk about that.
Right.
And if we don't talk about it, then how do other people know that they might have it? I've had multiple friends. Oh, well, I have this kind of pain and this kind of pain. You need to go get that checked out because it sounds to me like you have endo. And you and I have talked about, not wanting to put stereotypes on. It looks like you might have this. But
right.
If we're not educating, then how else are we supposed to change it?
Right. And if we just say, "Oh, I'm on my period," and we don't talk about what our period is or what it's like, even for women with other chronic pain conditions, I know that with my fibro, the older I've got and depending on the phase I'm in with my fibro, some periods are much worse. And I'm lucky enough to know the difference between a mild and average normal period per se to when things are really bad. And if we don't talk about it, how does anybody know what the standard for mild to severe is?
Exactly. Yeah. So the horrible periods, the ones that lay you up in bed, that's not normal. You should be able to function. You should be able to still have your life. You should be able to go to work, go to school, take care of your children, whatever the case may be. It shouldn't be killer cramps that make you want to throw up and die.
And I think there's a lot of times, and you've gone through this, where even when you probably should have been bedridden, you still kept up with your responsibilities. You still went to work. You still were a mom. You still did all those things. Again,
Absolutely.
because this was part of your life. Like you said, if you only had 2 good days a month, you can't be a mom just for 2 days a month.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
For that.
I think that some women learn to live with and tolerate a level of pain that is not normal.
That's a whole other ballgame, honey. Exactly. If you're not talking about the pain, at least with your friends and your doctors, you don't have to go shout it from the rooftops, but and even if you're not comfortable talking to your spouse about it, or, certain friends, that's fine. But you have to be vocal. You have to talk about it, and you need to tell your doctors. If you tell nobody else, just tell your doctor. And if they don't listen, you complain until they do, or you find a new doctor.
You find a new doctor. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you came to your diagnosis. You noticed in your late teens, early 20s that your periods were more painful and more aggressive than they probably should be.
Oh yeah, no, to start with, the first thing that made me even go get a pap smear, because that wasn't, my mom had a hysterectomy at the age of 27, so she kind of forgot that part was required. So I didn't have my first pap smear until I was 19. And the only reason that was because I had such a heavy period to the point where I had to lay down. If I didn't lay down, the minute I stood up, I had to change my clothes. And I couldn't work. I attempted a job, and during my period, I literally bled through multiple outfits. And you can't hold a job like that. My mom kind of forgot that part of parenting, I think, because she didn't advise me that there are really heavy pads and so on and so forth, but that I'm changing them too often. So, of course, I get put on birth control. And
because for all women, birth control is usually the first line of medical defense. Most doctors will go to that if you have irregular or difficult periods, regardless of your condition. It's hormone therapy.
Yep, it is. And
in this case, we shouldn't necessarily be calling it birth control. It does stop our ability to get pregnant, but it's a hormone replacement therapy. We're adapting our hormone.
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't. At first, yeah, it helped. I don't recall having an issue with it from the time of 19 to early mid-20s. I do recall, complaining to my grandma a lot about being in a lot of pain, and she was a health nut. So she's, of course, calcium, magnesium, and zinc and Tylenol was her prescription. Mm-hmm. And it did help, calcium, magnesium, and zinc, no joke. But I'm piggybacking ibuprofen and Tylenol at that point, trying to just be a person. But it was in my mid-20s. I was in bed one night, like 2 a.m., bawling because it hurt so bad. To the point that I went to the emergency room and they did a pregnancy test. It was negative. They gave me hydrocodone and said, "Here, go home, take these, call your doctor."
Take these and call me in the morning.
Yep, take these and call me in the morning. And at that point in time, my now ex-husband was military, so I had to see the base doctor first. And they're like, "We don't know. Go off base." So I did. And they didn't know either. They just kind of continued to give me hydros and birth control. And then before we moved to Spokane, we were at home for 90 days. And then again, my general doctor, who I'd been seeing since 4th grade, gave me hydros. And so we get here to Spokane, and I see the base doctor again before I can go off base. And the wonderful Colonel Sack decided she wanted to remove my left ovary because it looked bigger than my right one.
And at that time, all you had for diagnostic measures was a physical, a pap. Did they do an ultrasound?
Yeah, a couple of ultrasounds. The ones suck.
And endo can't be diagnosed from just an ultrasound.
No. Nope. Some seem to think it can, and I don't know how that's possible because I've seen pictures. I have my pictures. I've seen pictures online. I do my research. I follow up on it. It looks like black soot. Like, there is no way you can see this in an ultrasound. Mm-hmm. And the only reason I got pictures is because they had a camera in my abdomen when they were removing some scar tissue. And that's all it looks. It looks like black soot. There's no way you can see that on an ultrasound.
So a doctor wanted to take one of your ovaries, and you were in your mid-20s, had not had a child yet.
Nope.
And you declined to do that.
Well, they weren't allowed to. When civilians go to a medical doctor on base, they have to have a second opinion before doing anything like that. Mm-hmm. If you're active duty, they do not. But since I was a civilian, they had to send me off base to this terrible, terrible man. Funny enough, my daughter's middle name is his last name, not on purpose. And he just wanted to shut up the whiny little girl with the bad period. So he's old enough to be my grandpa. So, of course, he has the mindset of, it's supposed to be painful. Here, shut up and take something. And he decided to do a laparoscopy just to make me be quiet, just to prove that there was nothing wrong. And that's when they found stage 4 endometriosis.
And after that, regardless of the physical things that you had to go through, what what was it like emotionally to get a diagnosis like that? Were you relieved because finally you had an answer? Were you scared? Were you?
I didn't know what to think. I mean, the left ovary thing freaked me out and made me bawl, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But after finding the diagnosis, I still had no idea what they were talking about. You know, it wasn't a word I knew, let alone how to say it or spell it.
Right.
So, you know, you start doing research, you start reading books, you look for answers. And, again, their answer was, hormone therapy, to put you in chemical menopause, and it's called Lupron, and it's come a long way in the last, 15 years, but back then it was a shot that I got once a month. Thank God for health care for the military, because one shot was $500.
And now it's something else that occurred to me is that even the diagnostic experience, if you had not been insured, would you have gone to the doctor at all? Or if your insurance had not covered these things, would you have gone at all? Because, again, women are supposed to have a period.
Right, exactly. No, absolutely not. I mean, if I didn't have the insurance or the kind of insurance or the ability to pay, what's the point in going? So they can tell me what's wrong and I can't fix it?
Right.
Or
so they can be your period.
Yeah, just for me to tell me that I'm just a whiny little girl.
Mm-hmm.
So no, if you don't have insurance or the right insurance or good enough insurance, absolutely. Fortunately enough, I do know that like here in Washington state medical will cover a laparoscopy and excision surgery as well. I have a friend who had state insurance, and she was capable of getting the diagnostic. So, there are ways around it, but I highly doubt the state's going to pay for a $500 shot.
Right.
So I did Lupron, which was chemical menopause, which was hell. I thought, oh my God, I hope I never have to do menopause again. But that was before they like I said, it's come a long way. But in doing my research for the Lupron, I found out that it's what they use as chemical castration in male sex offenders. And here I am. And
a dramatic product.
Oh yeah, it's hell on wheels. Absolutely, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for somebody who's weak. It's heavy duty.
And did anybody give you any insight into how that could be before you did it?
No, nobody gave me any information. They hand you a dumb little pamphlet and say that, I forget what the numbers were back then, that, it works in, I think it was like 70% of women react well to Lupron, meaning the fact that they don't have pain afterwards. And that was the end goal, was the fact that it was supposed to put me in chemical menopause, so that way my body didn't hurt after I was done having the shot.
And the expectation was that it would last for the rest of your life? Because I know you had said it's expected to be a 9-month treatment. What's supposed to happen in month 10?
Month 10, I was supposed to be pain-free, and it was supposed to make me pain-free for the next 5 to 7 years.
And was that at all the case?
Oh, God, no. No, not at all. I experienced pain all the way through the 9 months. I also experienced then the side effects of the shot, which was nausea, night sweats. I think those were the 2 worst ones. Here I am in the middle of winter, sweating at night with a fan on me. sleeping on the bathroom floor because the nausea is so bad. So no, nobody gave me any insight onto any of that.
And again, you're still in your 20s. You're not yet a mom.
Nope.
Between the Lupron and later on, you did get pregnant. What were the different things that you tried, and what did any of the doctors ever talk to you about your risk of infertility and obviously most of the medications you had to take chemically made you unable to conceive.
Right. Not right away. They didn't talk to me about any of that, but eventually they did say, hey, you know, you have endometriosis. There's a high chance of infertility. Let's just do a hysterectomy. You know, at the ripe age of 27.
Right.
And that doctor pushed and pushed and pushed for the hysterectomy. And you have to learn to stand your ground. I'm like, no, I refuse. I'm not willing to. I'm too young to say, yeah, go ahead. So I, you know, just stood my ground, said no. So then we're talking, you know, birth control, because that helps you get pregnant. And then, you know, just hydros, ibuprofen, Tylenol, whatever the case may be, to deal with the pain. And then just suck it up, buttercup.
How old were you when you did finally become pregnant?
35.
So the longer a woman, I don't want to say waits, but because women should have babies whenever they want, but there are different risks as you get older, different risks to your own health, different risks to the baby. So you had to deal with that. But what happens to the endo when you finally do become pregnant?
Well, in theory, so not all women. I was lucky. Some women have pain the entire pregnancy. The endo pain doesn't go away. But I was lucky. I had the entire time I was pregnant until she was about 9 months old. So I had about 18 months of being pain-free, and it was marvelous.
And you had been dealing with 20 to 28 days of pain per month for 15 years at that point.
Right.
So after that, as it started to return and reoccur.
Oh, it came back with a vengeance. It was like pissed at me because I got pregnant. It's the only way to explain it.
It wasn't a gradual thing. It came back on full blown.
Oh yeah, full blown. Like it was mad. Yeah. It was worse than before. It was, hard to function.
And that's how you came to making the decision that you've made in the last couple years, because it wasn't just the pain anymore, it was your quality of life.
Right. Now I have this little girl that I have to, I mean, obviously I have help, but this little girl that I'm supposed to be a mom to. I'm supposed to go to the park and do field trips and do play dates and not be wired to my heating pad at all times.
Right. And so you did opt to go for the full hysterectomy.
Yep. Right before I turned 40. We moved back to Spokane, and at that point in time, we had decided that, I mean, we did get pregnant one more time, but it didn't hold because of course, the age. At that point, I was 37, 38, and the pregnancy didn't hold. So we decided that probably having another one wasn't really feasible, let alone the high risk and so on and so forth. So we decided to go ahead and have the hysterectomy to attempt to improve my quality of life.
And there is a misconception in the public that a hysterectomy is the cure for endo. That's
right.
not true.
No, that's not at all the case.
The tissue can be totally separate from the uterus and spread into other parts of the body.
Yep.
So they can take that away, but it can still be there.
Absolutely. So we chose to remove everything, ovaries, uterus, and my cervix. And then we chose not to do hormone replacement therapy because now I'm being put into a surgical menopause.
Right.
But we chose not to do the hormone replacement because we didn't want to feed the endometriosis. Because that's exactly what you're doing when you're putting the hormones back in. And that's why the point of removing everything was so the hormones weren't there. And so it did, I mean, for me, I was relatively lucky, but if it's not attached to your uterus, let's say it's attached to the backside of your bladder and they don't see it, and you're putting those hormones back in, those adhesions will continue to do what they've always done and flare up when you're adding the hormones back in.
So it can be definitely kind of a hidden monster for women that they've taken the source away, and there can still be some hidden somewhere, and they inadvertently trigger the growth of it again.
Yeah, and it can still grow if you're feeding it hormones, and you don't even have to do hormone replacement to feed it hormones. Our milk, our beef, our chicken, our pork, they all have hormones in them. That's why 1 in 10 women have it, is because our society pumps all these hormones into all of our food. So no matter how you try, you're still feeding it.
Mm-hmm. So post-surgery, besides knowing that you potentially still could have the endo living in your body, you were diagnosed with secondary pain conditions.
Yep. I'm lucky enough to have fibromyalgia.
And probably was dealing with that and didn't realize it in addition to the endo, because the endo was fairly overwhelming, I imagine. Yeah. So how did you handle being told, oh, by the way, you're still going to be in pain for the rest of your life?
You know, after being in pain for so long, you kind of just take it with a grain of salt and say, okay, well, let's do our research. Let's figure out how to tackle this one. Quality of life-wise, it's better. But it is definitely a new beast that I get to learn and attempt to, I'm not going to say tackle or tame because we both know that's not going to happen, but how to deal with it. And it's just a new beast that I have to learn to fight.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to a woman that suspects she has endo?
Go talk to your doctor. And if your doctor won't listen to you, complain until they do. And if they don't, you need to find a new doctor. There are good ones out there. There are resources to help you find excellent doctors if you have the means or the insurance. I was lucky enough to stumble upon one. But there are good doctors out there. They are compassionate and caring, and they have forums where they actually, you know, post stuff so you can see what they're saying about endo and how they are treating it. And they do take personal care of you. They don't just say, okay, well, here, we're going to do this, and you never talk to them again. So do your research, If you have the means, travel to see these doctors because it is well worth it.
And your motivation, besides your own health, is your daughter's health.
Yeah, there's a very high chance that Kiori will end up with endometriosis.
So what is your plan as a mom when she reaches that age where it's time to start talking about the joys of womanhood? How do you think that you'll go differently?
Oh, it'd definitely be differently because I know from my own personal stories as well as I have all these friends that painful periods aren't normal. So as soon as she's old enough, we will start looking at acupuncture and, the right supplements to make sure that, we are feeding her body, hopefully, with stuff that helps. At this point in her life, she's a really picky eater, so I don't think the diet will work, but we will definitely be looking at, okay, so let's look at free-range chicken rather than ones that are pumped full of hormones. Let's make sure that we are looking at the right foods so that way it'll help suppress some of those hormones that might make her hurt worse.
And give her a chance.
Yeah, give her a chance, to have, I'm not going to say pain-free because with endo there's a lot of them who are not.
Right. Oddly
enough, her godmother, and we didn't even know it at the time, has endo as well. So she has the resources, and her godmother is, fortunately enough, like some of the healthier foods.
Right.
So she will be a huge help as to helping Kiori find foods that she might like that might help reduce some of that inflammation.
What do you think is your greatest support system throughout all of this? In the beginning, there probably was very little support system because you didn't even know what kind of support you needed. But now, what do you think is your greater support system, and how did you come to find it?
God bless Facebook. No, my Kiori's dad. So it took me a while to find him, but he is huge support-wise. He has done his homework. He knows enough about endo to be intelligent when he speaks. So when it comes time for Kiori to have to deal with that, he will definitely have his eyes on it as well. Besides him, friends and Facebook. There are so many support groups out there. The women are caring and compassionate and full of ideas and ways to take your mind off of it and how to help deal with it. So, personal friends, family. Obviously, at the beginning, family was not as helpful as it could have been. Kiori won't have that problem, thankfully.
Well, and it's definitely, we've talked about this. Women are programmed to be silent about our periods, not talk about them, that's gross. That's,
yeah, absolutely.
And I can't imagine your brother wanted to hang out and have tampon talks with you.
No, absolutely not. People still ask, well, what is endometriosis? I'm like, I will give you the basics, but then Google it, but don't look at the pictures. And I tell everybody not to look at the pictures because the pictures are hideous and it scares people. I had to learn that one over time because I'd tell people and then they would look it up and then I would get yelled at. Because it's disgusting. And it's not like blood, gory, disgusting. It's just what you're looking at is the inside of a human being.
Right. There's a reason we have this layer of skin to keep all that stuff invisible for us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So going forward, now do you find that those same support systems that you've reached out to are there for you with the fibro, or is there a little bit of a fatigue of where your support system says there's only so much we can do?
Right.
Or have you found ways to adapt that part of your life?
Yeah, again, August has done his homework. He, when I complain about something, he understands what I'm saying. Online, again, is huge. You, being the fact that you've dealt with us longer than I am, is a huge resource. And then, of course, like I said, online. And most of my friends are intelligent enough to look it up before they tell me, try to give me something that it's not there.
Too. I hate that when somebody says, "Oh yeah, I think I have a touch of that too." Like you don't. Yeah, I'm sure that you probably wanted to say to somebody, you either have the endo or you don't. There isn't a touch of it.
Right.
You either
absolutely.
have to or you don't. It's not like a hint.
Right. And our pain tolerance definitely changes. Stuff that we should push through, we don't. So my friends are really good about, okay, Tessa, should you really be doing that? Which is nice.
Well, I appreciate you talking with me. We do have a video of us talking a little bit about Tessa's experience with the endo on Facebook as well. But definitely for all of our listeners, I want you to make it your mission. If you are a woman and you suspect you're going through something like this, or you suspect someone in your life is, don't be afraid to talk about it. And if you are a man, don't be afraid to talk about it. If you think that your wife or your daughter or your sister or your mother, if you think that they're going through something like this, don't be afraid to say, what can I do, even if it's just to bring a 6-pack of cupcakes.
Absolutely.
Well, because acknowledging that you at least, even if you don't know what to do, it's there, is huge.
Absolutely.
I think in any pain condition, just having someone, even if they admit that they don't know what to do or they don't know what to say, that the reason they're kind of stunned silent is because they see what's happening to you.
Absolutely. It's a huge help to know that I'm not invisible, that you can see the fact that I'm in pain and I'm struggling is a huge help.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you, Tessa, and I thank our listeners. And please visit pain605.com. That is our website. Support us on Patreon. And remember that awareness is free. And as always, compassion is priceless. Go home and do your research, folks. End endo.
End endo.
Thank you for listening. Tactical Pain is hosted by Jeni Mc, produced by Robert Mailing, and is part of the Sioux Empire Podcast Network. Visit us online at pain605.com.